Madam Mayor and the public, I truly apologize. It is 6:09 and we are live. Thank you, Keith.
Yay.
Your apology is accepted. Could you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga.
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes is absent. She is not feeling well. Commissioner Ronaldo Diaz.
Here. Commissioner Malay will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oh. Do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering, ma'am?
We do not, Madam Mayor.
All right. Do we have any comment cards from non-agenda items?
I have no comment at all this evening, Madam Mayor.
I see no blue cards up here. Okay, so approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, this is the minutes of April 26, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Aye, thank you. It's unanimous. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. It's unanimous. New business agreement with Utility Service Partners Private Label, Inc., doing business as Service Line Warranties of America for royalty marketing of water and sewer service line warranty programs. Mr. Shields.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You recall Ashley from the National League of Cities presented this item previously during the presentation to give our customers the opportunity to take advantage of this plan that's backed by them, in which for a nominal fee, they get service line protection on their private water service, sewer service, or internal plumbing. In exchange for us allowing them to use our logo in their advertising, they give us 50 cents per month per customer that they sign up, which is intended to go to the general fund, depending on how successful they are. So with that, the agreement has been through the city attorney for her review and concurrence with their attorneys. We cleaned it up a little bit and think it's a good agreement and would ask for approval.
Commissioner Maliga.
It's funny, I actually went through and I compared some of their rates to what I pay currently for FPU, Florida Public Utility, whatever. And these rates are really good. I'm excited for our residents. I really am.
You're talking about the rate that you pay for your gas.
No, I'm talking about the participation in this program.
Yeah.
There is a program that I pay for through Florida Power Utility or FPUC, whatever that stands for, that protects my
Gas.
they do gas, but I compared it to what I pay. And these rates are much more attractive. And I'm really excited for our residents. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Yeah.
I have a similar program in my own house with Florida Power and Light. It's a couple of dollars more a month, but again, comparable.
Yeah, I'm excited. Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. B, ordinance number 2022-11, first reading, water conservation for landscape irrigation. Madam Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2022-11, first reading, water conservation for landscape irrigation. Ordinance of the City Commission of the State of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, adopting Chapter 18 Utilities, Article 2, Water Utilities, Section 18-21, water conservation and irrigation, providing for local implementation of the mandatory year-round landscaping irrigation conservation measure rule of the South Florida Water Management District, 40E-24 of the Florida Administrative Code, providing for definitions, applicability of the ordinance, landscape irrigation schedule, exceptions to the schedule, other requirements, variances, enforcement, and penalties, renumbering of Article 3, emergency water use and for other purposes, and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Item C, change order 1 to Global Tech Inc. for the WTP Flash Mixer Improvements Project.
Yes, again, Brian Shields, Water Utility Director. Global Tech is our on-call time bill contractor. We are preparing to put a bypass in at it's the very head of the plant where the line was first added into the flash mixer structure. And as it currently stands, it was designed in 1959. There's no ability to bypass that. So we're putting in bypass piping, and as part of that project with Global Tech, they uncovered once we drained the box down that was in poor structural condition. Concrete was deteriorating, and steel structure, which holds up the walkway and handrails, was corroding and in dire need of repair. So this change order, which is fair and reasonable for Global Tech, is there to do the structural work, structural design work through WGI to get this box repaired, bring it back up, and extend its lifetime and make it safe for our employees at the same time.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. D, Florida Municipal Power Agency, FUMPA Solar Projects Update. And this
How'd you say that? Pumpa?
FUMPA. That's how you say it, FUMPA. It's an acronym, you know, we live by that.
It's fun, Pumpa.
Good evening, hi.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. We do have a guest with us tonight that's going to be speaking on this issue. This is Susan Schumann with the Florida Municipal Power Agency, in charge of member services, but is also heavily involved in our solar contracts. And while Susan starts to talk, I'll make sure I can put the presentation up on the screen here.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I do have a PowerPoint to share with you on this as well.
Excuse me, Susan, please speak in the mic
Mm.
so that the audience listening
You have to be really right up
Really?
on it.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise, people,
Right.
and folks, our staff too, we have to remember, I've gotten some from the last meetings that people can't hear the staff from the bottom. From the,
Just remind me if I stray away from this.
we'll do our
Quite
best.
a lot. Um,
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Susan Schumann, and I'm with FMPA. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to discuss the Florida Municipal Solar Project with you. I've been working with Ed and the 15 other participants of this project for several years now. We're very proud of this project. We're very excited to get it online. We are currently experiencing some challenges, some regulatory challenges, industry challenges, and some inflationary cost increases that are unaffordable. But we are addressing these and hoping that, we can come to a resolution with these soon to move forward. Florida Municipal Power Agency, we are owned and governed by 31 municipal electric utilities in the state, and that includes Lagoon Beach. Ed and 30 of his colleagues across the state, they serve on FMPA's board of directors, and they provide direction to us, and they provide guidance, and they help determine what our priorities are. So they just determine the steps that we need to see. Our 31 members represent 2.7 million Floridians, and that's about 12% of the state's population. So we're not an insignificant group of people. So there's a lot of things that happen in the FMPA, and these colleagues are key to that. Very similar to the state itself and their generation mix, FMPA gets about 8% of our energy from natural gas. And right now, we're at about 50% coal on energy generation. We expect over the next several years that will decrease as the Stanton units will either retire or be powered to fire natural gas. And at the same time, we expect the coal to decrease. We expect our solar emission, our solar generation and energy to increase to about 7% of the mix. And if you look at this map, you see the 5 little sunshines there. Those represent the 5 facilities that are the phase 1 and phase 2 of Florida Municipal Solar Project.
Let me interject there for a second on the fuel mix, because the commissioners and the public at home have probably heard different numbers for Lake Worth Beach. So FMPA effectively operates with what I would refer to as an analogy, an a la carte menu. So that is the mix of the entire FMPA portfolio. Lake Worth Beach does not participate evenly across that entire portfolio. So our numbers are somewhat different. Our natural gas numbers are probably in the range of 50%. Our coal number is 8% or less. Our nuclear is about 38 to 39% in our solar is about 0.75 to 1%. So we have a slightly different mix than the entire market basket of fuels that's available through FMPA. But we do benefit greatly from our relationship with FMPA.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification. Yes, this is just for FMPA, and Lakewood Beach is a part of FMPA, but doesn't mirror our generation mix. So thank you for that. So for an overview of the Florida Municipal Solar Project, again, it currently consists of 5 facilities. 2 of those facilities are already operational, and 3 of them we're anticipating commercial operation in 23 and 24. It's a total of 16 cities and 373 megawatts across the 5 facilities. So this table right here just shows the participation in phase 1 and 2. Lake Worth Beach actually participates in both phases. And you can see by looking at this, you're actually one of the larger participants in the solar project with more than 36 megawatts that you'll be receiving once phase 1 and 2 are operational. So as I
Are we
mentioned,
allowed to say go Ed?
What?
Are we allowed to say go Ed?
I'm sorry, is are you not able to advance the slides? Is Anthony still in the chamber?
No.
No, he's not. So the slides are not advancing.
Anthony, we need you in the chamber, please, for a moment. The slides are not advancing, and also we're just seeing the first slide with, I think it's possible the PowerPoint hasn't started.
I think
The
we're.
slideshow.
Yeah, it's on the
Thank
screen.
you.
It's on the screen in the chamber. It's just not-
to share it.
Oh, apparently not.
It should share.
Melissa, do you see
There
the
you go,
right,
it advanced.
can you see the right one now?
I don't know if it's the right one, but it's not the first one, so that's a good sign.
Here, let's see.
It's US Department of Commerce investigation is the one that's showing.
Can you go back a slide and let's make sure that works?
Yep.
Yeah. Click forward, Maker. Thank you.
Actually, let's go back a slide because there's some things on that slide. There are some things here that we did want to touch on. We did get involved in these projects in 2019. So these are projects that take a long time to get constructed, long lead time items. These are hundreds and hundreds of acres. There are land permitting issues that have to be obtained, and also interconnection agreements and transmission service agreements. So these projects are in northern Florida. They're massive, covering 300 to 500 acres of land. It's quite impressive to see. But there is a third project that's planned, and Susan will speak more about that, which is phase 3. And that's going to be somewhere between 149 and 373 megawatts. And that's going to add even more communities that will participate. Why solar at such a large scale? When you build solar at such a large scale, you get much lower costs per kW. Now, setting aside for the moment, we're going to talk about in a few minutes about the Department of Commerce investigation on tariffs. When you look at large-scale solar utilities, what they call utility scale solar, you're typically looking at numbers of under $1 a watt installed. Whereas if you looked at rooftop solar, for example, you could be looking at numbers of three or more times that. So when you do utility scale solar, you got these massive economies of scale, which benefit many, many people, as opposed to a single rooftop solar, which of course greatly benefits that individual homeowner, but it doesn't benefit millions of potential customers. So that's why we look at this large scale solar. Having said that, though, we are going to be facing some increased costs because of the Department of Commerce investigation. And I'll turn it back over to Susan. She'll get us into the details of what that investigation means. And by the way, it's not an investigation of us. It's an investigation of the Chinese government and panels sourced from China.
Yeah, so as Ed said, and as we have mentioned, there are some challenges that we're facing, and one of them is this regulatory challenge. In March, the Department of Commerce announced that they're going to be investigating solar panels that come out of 4 Southeast Asian countries. And those countries are Cambodia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand. And as Ed said, the allegation is that solar panels that are manufactured in China are then routed through these 4 countries where they do the final touches on the manufacturer, and then they send them to the United States saying that they were manufactured in these 4 countries rather than China. So what that effectively does is it circumvents and avoids tariffs that are put in place that are intended to directly impact imports from China.
Oh, geez,
So
okay.
the allegation is that they're circumventing those tariffs. And this affects the majority of the utility scale solar projects in the United States. 80% of the projects that are planned are impacted, and most of the panels for these projects come out of Asia in some way, shape, or form.
Any idea how long this civil investigation is going to take?
It doesn't include us,
Yeah, that does not include us.
for Ed.
I wouldn't say it doesn't include it. It's not-
Well, we're affected by it, but we're not subject of the investigation.
So we are expecting a preliminary determination from the Department of Commerce in August.
Oh,
But the actual final decision could take months longer, up to a year from the initial announcement. We just don't know how long that's going to take. But the impacts are already being realized. The uncertainty surrounding it, because nobody really knows what the final costs are going to be. And the tariffs will be imposed retroactively as well. It won't be, in August, everything moving forward. It's retroactive to when the complaint was made.
So we've actually, it sounds like, if I'm correct, we have been benefiting from the lower cost because they're avoiding the tariffs. So if the price goes up, it's going to be the tariff because of the tariffs. Am I?
Sort of. Our portions, the projects that we're participating in, our portion of the project has not been built yet.
Oh,
It should be under construction now. Some of the field work is probably started in some of the projects, but we would have been receiving that power in 2023. So
right.
our forward-looking projections of what we were going to pay for power, we're benefiting from this, but we haven't started to receive this power yet. So what's an issue here is when we do start to receive it, it's going to be more expensive. Now, we do have contracts with the developers at a fixed price. There's a potential that because this is an industry-wide impact and this involves the U.S. government, that there may be elements of force majeure in the contract. So we don't want to speculate too much on that in the public setting. We'll be speaking more about that in one-on-ones because of some of the information confidential. But there is a potential impact to us.
Our developers have contacted us and said that there will be impacts. We don't know the extent of those. What we do know, we're sharing on one-on-ones with the participants. So the developers do want to work with us. They don't want to cancel these projects. I think the majority of our membership, if not all, I haven't talked to all in one-on-one yet, would like to move forward with these projects, assuming that the terms that we get from the developers are acceptable. Each of these projects has a committee formed of the participants and serves on both of the committees. And those committees will get together and discuss the options and determine what path forward. And that's for phase 1 and phase 2. It's 2 separate issues, but very similar impacts that we're looking at.
I'll add that in these discussions, I'm subject to the sunshine laws just as you are.
Oh,
So Susan is having one-on-ones with all of the board members like myself that Susan cannot convey to me.
right.
So please don't convey to me what other board members are telling her. She cannot act as a conduit. But she's briefing us all in one-on-ones. And I've got some thoughts, and then I'll discuss that at the public meetings as a board member on what I think our strategy would be. And all of you are scheduled to spend some time with me over the next 5 to 10 days or so. We'll get into a little bit more detail. So being a set up on your calendar.
Thank you.
We'll take care of the confidential stuff that we have to do in a one-on-one, so you're aware of what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and as Ed said, this isn't targeted at us at all. This affects everybody, the entire industry across the country. Earlier this month, a group of 22 senators, a bipartisan group of senators, they wrote a letter to President Biden And they indicated that they're already observing impacts, negative impacts from just the announcement of the investigation, not even the investigation or the outcome, just the announcement of it has caused negative impacts in the industry. So they're requesting the administration, the Department of Commerce, to please expedite this investigation. And please come to a very quick resolution. Whatever the resolution is, we want to do the right thing, but make it happen quickly so we can get the industry back on its feet and get these projects back in motion so we can have solar. Nobody wants to cancel all of these solar projects. So we want to move forward. And SEA, which is the trade association for solar, has also expressed some frustration with the investigation itself. Once the investigation was announced, they performed a survey of their membership. And at the time, they confirmed that 318 projects had already announced a cancellation or delay. So the number is probably higher than that. It's early in the investigation and it didn't involve, everybody. But, so the impacts are already there. So we are navigating all of these regulatory issues and cost increases and potential delays. But at the same time, we really do have two projects that are at varying levels of development at this time. So I'll just give you an update of where we are, just quickly go through what each of these projects are with the understanding that some of the terms may change and Ed will be at the table the entire way as we talk about these changes with the developers. So phase one solar, we executed power purchase agreements in 2018. And that was with Florida Renewable Partners, which is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy. This was for 3 74.5 megawatt facilities. And of those facilities, 2 of them, Harmony and Taylor Creek, are already online. They've been operational since June of 2020. Unfortunately, Lake Worth Beach isn't participating in either of those 2 facilities, but you do have interest in the third phase one facility, which is Point Set. It's received interconnection agreements, environmental permitting, all local permitting. It's received everything. And until just, a couple of months ago, we had every reason to believe that construction would begin this summer. FRP has reached out to us and said that there will be impacts, likely delays and cost increases. So we're in the very initial discussions with them. I've shared what information I know with Ed, and as what you said, he and his colleagues are going to get together and discuss it and determine what the options are and a path forward.
So to put this in perspective, our commitment under phase one to the Point Set site was for 10 megawatts. And then it was 26.5 megawatts, 26.55 out of phase 2. So we're in for 10 megawatts on the first site. FRP is related to a company some of you may recognize by the name of NextEra. They're a unit of NextEra. So they're an outstanding company. We believe that they'll do the right thing and we'll negotiate fairly to an amicable solution on what has to happen here.
Are they connected to FP&L, NextEra?
NextEra is the parent company.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
FRP.
Okay, thank you.
So very similar in structure to phase one is the phase 2 solar. We have PPAs with Origis Energy, and that's for 2 74.9 megawatt facilities. And we contracted for those in 2019. As Ed said, you have 26.5 megawatts out of phase 2, and they're distributed 50-50 between these 2 facilities, Rice Creek and Lislinda. And Origis also has reached out to us and indicated that there are going to be impacts and provided us with some preliminary data that we'll be reviewing and determining our options.
So these are all, even though they're on hold, nobody knows what to do.
Yeah. They are providing us with a path forward, but we just need to investigate it and see if that's what our membership wants to do.
COD is,
Commercial operation date.
thank you.
So the big picture on this is that we still have contracts for solar. The developers are in a tough spot because the panels are anywhere between 50 to 250% higher in cost than they were when they signed the contracts. And it will be retroactive. So even though our portion of the project isn't being built yet, even if it had been built, we wouldn't necessarily escape these tariffs. This is a very difficult position that the industry finds itself in because at the time when natural gas prices are going up like crazy, and we need this solar power because it's at a very attractive price compared to where the market is today, they're stalled and delayed. There's a complex to get these projects underway. You have to have control of the property, you have the permits to build, you have to have the interconnection agreement to interconnect either the Duke or the Florida Power Line transmission system. And then you have to have the transmission service agreement, which is to actually move power through their system to our location. So that has largely been done for these projects. It's an extensive amount of work, and now they're just stuck on this tariff issue.
And this is all because China wanted to avoid the tariffs.
That's the allegation. And the allegation was made by actually a domestic solar panel producer who put together a very extensive package and submitted as a complaint. They have standing, and the Department of Commerce is underway with the investigation. Whether the allegations that they made in their complaint, and you can find it online, it's very extensive. Whether those allegations prove out to be true, that remains to be seen. That's up to the Department of Commerce to determine. Ultimately, this is probably going to be some form of a political solution. That's my suspicion.
A what
A
solution?
political solution, because the nation is counting on solar. So we're not, in our case, engaging in these projects. You know, even if you set aside the price, we were looking at 15 to 20% of our energy supply coming from solar. And that's still our commitment. Another 38% coming from nuclear. So we would have been 55 to 60%. We will be 55 to 60% carbon free in our power supply. That's still our goal. And it looks like the underlying issue though is going to be the price. The price is likely to change.
Oh, good. I'm just curious about something because you mentioned there's a domestic producer of panels. So I'm curious, like, what's the market split look like? And is there an effort to move that kind of manufacturing back? I mean, obviously it's not a quick fix, but I think if for long term, is there any kind of effort to move it back to the US?
I've seen some press highlights. I read these things every day. I get news feeds, as does Susan and FMPA. You will see more domestic manufacturing, but the labor costs and material costs are so low. I mean, the allegation, unproven, is that the Chinese are using slave labor to produce these panels. I don't know that to be true. Only the Department of Commerce will be able to figure that out first. But obviously, we're not going to use that type of labor in this country. And we want to support that
Right.
anywhere.
I hope it's not.
But there's a very limited production here in this country.
Bring manufacturing back to America. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I can imagine with the panels, there's probably some toxic materials involved and all kinds of things, all kinds of human and environmental issues to think about.
Norway is upset about
Yeah.
this.
But in addition to the panels going up in cost, what will the ancillary equipment, whether it's steel, or aluminum, copper, construction costs are all increasing as well. So we're focused in this discussion on the panels, but the costs of projects have gone up even besides just the panels.
Yeah.
But we are hopeful that this does drive, in many other areas of our economy, manufacturing back to the country. Because here we are as a country with 80% of the solar projects that are planned, which are very important signature element really of this current administration and many more to come. That be stranded like this because of a problem with tariffs and foreign manufacturing. We need to bring these jobs back to the U.S., bring manufacturing to the U.S.
And with the understanding that there will be a cost because there will be safety and environmental concerns, and we're going to make sure that the labor is treated.
Well, yeah, if we're not using slave labor, it's going to get more expensive.
But right now, there just aren't any really good alternatives. There are limited manufacturing. There are some in the United States, but it's very limited. But
That's a shame that, I mean, again, this is like hindsight, but that somebody couldn't have thought of, here's a new industry, solar panels. Let's do it in America, but it's cheaper, I guess.
And I'll chime in because I've followed this for a while, and Ed, I'm sure has too, that there have been a number of American manufacturing companies. Evergreen was doing some. I think they may still be in several others, and they just had a rough time competing with the prices coming from China, and the quality coming from China got very good. And then the whole tariff. I agree with Ed that I think it's likely to be a political solution at some point of, okay, this isn't great, but we need the panels. So let's come up with some way to make this go.
So continuing,
So the best laid plans, I mean, Ed and his colleagues have done everything right in moving these projects forward. And because, like I said, we're very proud of these projects and very
Yeah.
excited to have them come online. And they're still going to be very good projects. We just need to renegotiate and, you know, maybe just kind of redirect a little bit, but we will get there through no fault of, you know, anybody. You know, it's a nationwide issue right now.
so this may affect our rates as well at some point.
It all depends on where natural gas prices go, and we do have a comparison to natural gas, but because of the confidentiality of our power contracts, I'd rather not disclose
Okay.
that number in public. Certainly, when we get together on one-on-ones, I will share that number with you. But this does serve as a hedge, if you will, against rising fuel prices in the future. So, and I want the public to know that while this is an inconvenience at the moment, the price is going up, this is not shaking our commitment to solar in the city. We remain strongly committed to solar, and we remain strongly committed to bringing these projects to fruition. So we're not going to go backwards. We're not going to say, forget it, we'll go burn more coal or something. You know, that's not what we're advocating. We're going to stick with solar.
Thank you.
And remember too, to add to that from Ed, this affects this whole business with the investigation and Department of Commerce affects the capital costs of the projects, which is not insignificant, but it doesn't in any way affect the operating costs. So the cost of getting juice out of the panels doesn't increase from this at all. It's just the initial building, and that's a good thing. And that relates to the hedge that Ed was talking about.
Thank you. Okay,
And I will say that FMPA shares the commitment that Ed discussed. We definitely want to see these projects. It's good for all of our members. And having said that, you know, we were thinking ahead back in January before the event came out. In response to our member interest and our members insisting that we investigate solar even more, we issued a request for proposals for phase 3 of the solar project. And we're looking at 2 to possibly up to 5 75 megawatt sites, depending on member interest. So we could potentially double the size of what we have out there already for our membership. We'd like to have those operational by December of 2026. And again, all of this was before the investigation, but we're still moving forward with all of this. We know some things will change, but we know that this is something that will happen. We just need to noodle through all of the issues. Again, we're looking at a 20-year power purchase agreement. We would like to include battery storage to the extent that it's cost effective and feasible. If it's not at this time, and that will come out of negotiations with the developers, we would like to have the option to retrofit it in the future. So that'll be part of the terms that we would like to see in the agreement, which won't be a problem. We'd like to have the FMPA board approvals by the end of this year. We're meeting with the 3 shortlisted developers right now and hope to make a selection very shortly, at, you know, probably the end of June, we hope. We can choose 1 or all 3 of them, depending on the sites that they offer to us. We're going to be very flexible with how we make the selection. And we'd like to have indicative interest from our members by July 1. And that's non-binding. What we're looking for is if Ed is interested in participating and this commission agrees, just throw your name in there and say how many megawatts you think you would be interested in. It's non-binding. It just helps us facilitate the negotiations with the developers. If they know we have 10 members that are interested in, you know, 300 megawatts, or, you know, 2 members interested in, you know, 75 megawatts. It just helps with the negotiations.
is that something that's going to come to us, or is that a consensus?
No, that's something that would come to you in our one-on-ones. We will discuss this to get a little bit more of a sense of which direction you'd like to go in. Ultimately, participating should really come from a vote, a very, very strong consensus or a vote to do that. The challenge for us is that we went solar hard early in 2018, 2019. So we took a total of 36.5 megawatts. If you look at our projected hourly use of electricity as a utility into the future, let's say 24, 2024, 25, 26, because of the amount of solar that we bought, we will have hours during the day for 4 to 5 months of the year when we're going to have more power coming at us Then we have a customer to deliver it to. Okay, and you say, wow, we went long. We didn't grossly overbuy. We bought as much as we possibly could because the price was so low, we couldn't say no. And we knew that we would grow into, right? Especially if we look at some of the large projects coming online around the city now. And the price was so low that even if we were a little bit long, we could easily resell it and not have a problem in the marketplace. The issue that we have, if we look at FMPA Solar 3, if we already know that we're slightly on the long side, do we go even more? So I said that there'll be hours during the day during 4 to 5 months of the year when we'll have more power coming at us. The other 6 or 7 months of the year, we could more than use that power. So solar has this feature that says it can only be made in the daytime at the moment. And so you have to use it in the daytime. So if we look at the rest of the year, there's no problem taking more solar, but what do we do with it for the 4 to 5 months when we don't have a load for it? So how does that happen? Well, that's because 38% of what we have is already coming from nuclear. And nuclear really doesn't turn off unless there's a very serious problem with the plant where they shut down for refueling. Even when they shut down for refueling, we still get 50% of our allocation. So it's a tricky calculus. I very much want to participate. We just have to pick the right number. And we have to look into the crystal ball and say, where do we think fuel prices are going in the future? I do like the idea of diversifying the portfolio across FMPA Solar 1, Solar 2, and Solar 3. We would probably not commit to Solar 3 on the order of magnitude of what we did in Solar 2. I would expect it might be something akin to what we did in FMPA Solar 1 or less, especially if we see numbers that are somewhat close to that $34 number that's up on the screen right now.
Commissioner Maliga?
Ed, thank you for that. Can we not harness that extra energy and put it into battery storage?
We could put it into battery storage, and that's one of the options that I asked FMPA to investigate, and that's why they're looking at battery storage as a part of the project. Under the current tax laws of the tax code, the storage would not get the tax benefits unless it was built coincidental and adjacent to the solar project. So the storage would have to be built at the site where FMPA Solar 3 is built. It could not be built here. So what I was hopeful at one point was that we could take a portion of the project and add battery storage here. I don't believe that's possible under the tax code, but we do currently have an RFP out on the street. And my understanding is that we do have one respondent to help us study just what it could cost us to put batteries in here and are there other benefits that we could get. For example, relieving loads on circuits, backing us up if we have a feeder problem, supporting more vehicle charging after hours, and shifting the solar to flow at night. That's the only way at the moment we can get solar to work at night is to put battery storage in.
What if we put the battery storage at our solar field? Would that not harness enough?
It probably wouldn't work in the tax code because that project was built a number of years ago and was not built using tax benefits. That was built without the tax benefits.
Dang, okay.
So by comparison, tax benefits are very, very powerful. So for example, our solar project costs us about 14 cents or $140 per megawatt hour for the power that comes from it. That's if you take the debt service and find out the amount of power it produces. The numbers you see on the screen are $34.
Right.
So it's very difficult to build a project of the size that we build and have it be competitive.
Right.
Same thing with batteries. If you want to have batteries be competitive, you're going to have to build them much larger scale than a small battery you want to build here. But we're not going to build them now. We want to know what those numbers are so we can understand them and have a good idea of at what point we want to drop the money on the table and say, okay, let's do it now. It makes sense for us.
What would your return on the investment be for if we purchase those batteries? How long would it take us to forecast that money back? That's what you're looking at now?
At the moment, I think it's probably well out around 15 or way back before the war. I think, and you know, the battery life that you're talking about, it might be a 20-year project. So you really don't want to say, hey, all goes well and last 2 or 3 years of the project to make our money back.
Yeah, really.
You know, as a municipality, is something that you're passionate about and is very important strategically to do something like that. But I think that battery prices are going to continue to come down and down and down.
Okay.
I just want to understand at what point should we strike, not only go on strike, but at what point should we strike and what batteries and where and how and for what purpose, as opposed to finding out years later, oh yeah, that would have been a good idea 5 years ago.
Right.
I'd like to know ahead of time when that point is coming.
And thank you for clarifying the non-striking.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I just have one more slide and I can go very quickly through that. And we will be working with the developers. We need to come up with a case for battery storage that
Mhm.
works. And unfortunately, we have several members that we're working with. And the case may be different for Ed than it may be for another city. But yeah, Ed has been very, very aggressive and an integral part of us getting these solar projects where they are. He's been there since the beginning and he's definitely making sure he was part of us, moving forward with phase 3 as well, even though he took such a big chunk of phase 2. So we appreciate that. We appreciate working with him. So the schedule I just put in here, so y'all can just see where we are with phase 3. We're meeting with the short list of proposers. If we complete the negotiations by the end of July, the member approvals back at the respective commissions would be in the August, November timeframe for FMPA to approve and execute by the end of the year. So that's just an idea of where we're going with this and give an idea when Ed is back in front of you.
So what we would do with FFPA Solar 3, we will probably use a process of consensus to arrive at what our number might be that we'd like to participate, but certainly then the final contract would then come back formally. So that might be a better way to go. Use consensus to make the non-binding expression of interest and then come back for a formal vote when we do the actual contracts.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments on this?
We have no comments at all, Madam Mayor, on anything.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Am I correct? This one is for Ed, I think. Am I correct in understanding that the battery storage that's proposed or being considered for phase 3 is probably on the range of 2 to a max maybe 8 hours storage? It's to shift the peak from the solar peak to the usage peak, but within a day, not to shift from one part of the year to another part of the year. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct. Typically, you're storing it for daily or weekly cycling, and you're running 2 to 8 hour cycles. Now, I have not been involved. I have not reviewed the RFPs nor been debriefed on the responses. So I'm not putting out anything that I know confidentially at the moment. But typically, they're 2 to 8 hour, 2 to 6 hour type of discharge. So
right.
For example,
so
if we took some piece of solar free, we would use our piece to store the battery, put it into the battery, and then sometime after 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, take it back out so that it can then be refilled the next day when the sun comes up. So it would be a daily cycle, not a seasonal.
Right. So it doesn't help with the seasonal imbalance of load and production. It does help with the daily, and it may or may not be economically feasible yet, and hopefully battery prices keep coming down, lithium supply and all that stuff gets somewhat sorted out. But two thoughts that come to mind, which I'm sure people are thinking about. One is the whole idea of bi-directional charging with electric vehicles and using the fleet of electric vehicles as they increase as part of your storage in a very different way. It's not on site and doesn't give you the tax benefits, but it might conceivably give you some scale storage. And the other is there are people talking about longer term storage, whether using it to produce hydrogen or using it to pump weights up and down, or water is a problem in Florida because there's no elevation to mount anything. But there are active efforts at making longer term storage at scale. They're certainly not there yet, but one could imagine by the time the project is on that some of it might be available.
Thank you.
Those things are true. Now there are forms of seasonal storage, for example, where the storage device is backing up a critical point of infrastructure. We're using it to relieve load during an emergency, or to back up if you lose a feeder to a substation or something like that. But that's a very expensive form of backup. I am very familiar with storage technology. Earlier in my career, I did work in advanced projects where we investigate storage. And I was actually the O&M representative to a pumped hydro storage facility. We pumped water from a lower reservoir to an upper reservoir, and then let it reverse and flow back down to make power.
I read about those.
That's in northern New Jersey, facility called Yards Creek.
It's
I was
amazing.
heavily
The
involved in
flow
that.
of the water becomes the hydro.
Correct. But
There's a
you
couple
pump
of
the
them
water
there.
up, with cheap energy
Right.
to the upper reservoir, and then you open up floodgates, if you will, and let it flow back down when the cost of power is more expensive.
Yeah, I just read a giant one like out in the Midwest somewhere. It's huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in the concept of vehicle to grid, the vehicle to grid is not common. There are some pilots that are taking place in the country. Not all vehicles in the market will currently support that. Some will support, for example, I've heard that the F-150, the Ford Lightning truck will power contractors' pools and things like that. But I'm not so sure that we're really at the point yet where they can power to the grid. There are a couple of pilots on the way in the country, but it's not yet working. The states where you may see that first is where they have real-time pricing. We don't use real-time pricing in Florida. But that's something that's done in California. And I know that they have some severe issues there with the transmission line loading and the potential for creating fires when those transmission lines run across vegetation in the countryside. But that's not here yet. The economics are a little bit rough. I'm not sure why somebody would charge their vehicle with 12-cent power and sell it back to the utility at 3 or 4 or 5 cents, which is the value of the utility. But I can see why people might want to use it to back up their home if we did have a power outage to the home. And I think that the Ford truck will do that, and maybe some other vehicles out there that do that right now. But they're not intended for grid support at the moment.
Thank you.
And the RFP is going to basically give us almost an update on like what storage, because battery storage at this scale, it's not quite there yet. It's obviously improving, but this RFP, we're going to get like the latest options, choices, potential maybe. Or...
No, this RFP is focused on battery storage, specifically at utility scale.
Right. And so that's what I mean. For technologies on that scale, that kind of battery storage, we're going to hear about like what are some of the best options available right now, basically.
Correct, but we'll look at pump storage or anything
Right.
like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There are concepts, by the way, there's some that I was familiar with a number of years ago. This was actually in the mid-90s where these were underground caverns with an upper and lower chamber that were hundreds of feet below the surface. So the upper reservoir was still maybe 100 feet below the surface, and the lower reservoir was 300 or 400 or 500 feet below the surface. You're pumping water from an upper cavern to a lower cavern. That project did not get traction. It got a lot of interest, but it didn't go anywhere. And that was in the Northeast. And
Yeah. I think in Florida, we're a little bit sensitive in moving our groundwater to different.
Exactly. So I don't see something like that happening here. But the other project didn't happen. We're open air, reservoirs at elevation out in the open. And they were also involved with some amount of recreation as well.
Cool. Looking forward to learning about that.
Every day in weeks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is E, which is the Solar Energy Loan Fund options for Lake Worth Beach. Do we have a presentation, Mr. Liberty?
Yes, we do have a presentation, and I believe Doug Coward is on from the Solar Energy Loan Fund. Is Doug, are you on Zoom? Have you joined us?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Commission. This is, for the record, my name is Doug Coward. I'm the Executive Director of the nonprofit Solar and Energy Loan Fund. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Doug, I'm not
Great.
sure that we can slide here. Do you want to drive the slides from your desk? Would that be easier?
No, I honestly don't need them.
Okay.
Just as a point of record, I presented to this commission, I think acting as the utility board back in the fall of last year. And in the packet, I provided the overview of our nonprofit. So I wasn't intending to go back through that unless any of the city commissioners had questions. I'd be glad to answer. But what I wanted to do is focus on page 105 and 106 in the packet, which were the two subsequent pages that I provided over the last week that just kind of give a high level overview of how our nonprofit has partnered with about a dozen different local governments across the state. And we started out, of course, in St. Lucie. We've formed partnerships with the Regional Planning Council, the City of Stewart, Martin County, and then St. Pete, Tampa, Orlando, the Atlanta Housing Authority, and then just last week, we finalized a 3-year agreement with the city of Miami as well. So we've been growing pretty rapidly. We've grown by about 400% over the last 4 years and have expanded from 1 county to, we're currently operating in 4 states and about to open up a 5th. So we're very excited about, continuing our success in the Treasure Coast area and expanding further into Palm Beach County. So I was very pleased to have the request to have us come back and present some more information about how SELF works with these local government partners. And in that memo, I provided on page 105 a little bit of history of that, those partnerships and the different local governments we worked with. And then on page 106, I actually laid out 3 different options. And this is very high level, but I wanted to kind of give some background information about how we have, customized these partnerships with different local governments. So on the simple and no cost option, is really the first option I laid out, is that if a local government would like to work with us, but does not have resources to seed the organization and help us actually have a physical presence in the city, you can still do things which I would categorize as in-kind support that can be very meaningful in terms of providing information to both local homeowners as well as local contractors who may wish to participate in our program. So that was essentially what I was anticipating initially when I had presented to your board last fall. I'm not sure that we've made it onto your website since then. And so I don't have a current status of that. But generally what we would look for under that scenario is to have a link on maybe 1 or more portions of your website, just so that local citizens know we're here and that we can help them. Some of the local government partners we work with do informational flyers that they put inside like an in-bill stuffer in the utility bills. But basically what you're doing is helping us reach out to local homeowners and contractors so that they're aware of our program. And then if there are interested people, we're doing virtually 100% online lending. So a local person can go online, can apply, online, and we can actually service them remotely from our headquarters here in Fort Pierce. The second option is an in-between kind of a hybrid part-time option. And we've done this in multiple smaller jurisdictions like the city of Stewart. We've done similar ones with Martin County. And under this scenario, what we do is basically provide a part-time loan officer who is working in the local community on community engagement, marketing initiatives. They're helping to build the local contractor base, because just as a reminder, I know it's been many months since I presented to you, but about 70+% of our projects actually come to us from local contractors who are trying to help homeowners. And those homeowners don't have 700 credit scores, cannot qualify for traditional financing. And without SELF stepping in to fill that financial gap, the business owner just has to walk away from that business, and it leaves the homeowner in the lurch. They might not have an AC in August. They might not have a solid roof in hurricane season. But what SELF really does is fill that financial gap, help struggling homeowners who may not have great credit scores, and then also create employment opportunities for local businesses. So the second option is just essentially a part-time commitment from our team, where we would have our loan officer spending a portion of their time working specifically to grow the local contractor base in Lake Worth Beach, trying to connect with a variety of like-minded nonprofits and business organizations and trade organizations in your local community, just to help get the word out and build the program. Under that scenario, we've seen, I would use Martin County as example. I think we did about $1 million of lending over a 3-year time frame. I think they provided us with $60,000 a year for 3 years, and we turned that $180,000 into over $1 million of projects we leveraged with outside resources, and then we project manage and close those loans. And then the The most popular partnership is the third option, which is to actually try and create a new satellite program with a full-time loan officer. And under that scenario, our goal is to actually make the program sustainable long-term. And it seems a little odd, but we're a nonprofit organization, but we do generate some modest fees and a little spread on the loan, so that at scale, we're generating sufficient earned revenue to actually pay for the staff person who is implementing that program. So the best example is the city of St. Petersburg, which was the first local government to pursue that option. And we're currently in year 4, and we've done over $3 million of lending, and we're generating sufficient earned revenue from that lending activity in year 4 that even though the grant has expired, we're still operating at full capacity. Truthfully, when I look at those 3 different scenarios and the size of the city, although I think I understand from some of the correspondence that you're actually interested in your utility service area as opposed to just the city limits, which is fine. But due to the size of the city and the utility service area, I personally think that option 2 makes the most sense, is that we would commit a part-time person to launch and grow the program, build your contractor base, work closely with the city, work closely with the utility, work on marketing. And of course, we pre-screen all the contractors and we project manage each and every one of the projects as well. But if the city is interested in doing something other than just putting us on our website, I think option 2 makes the most sense, all things considered.
I have a question in regards to that. A lot of these other cities and municipalities, do they have their own electric utility, or is it just the water sewer?
Most do not. A couple of them do. We work very closely with the city of Fort Pierce. They have their own utility. It's a mix. We work with the city of Orlando, and of course, Orlando has OUC. So it's a little bit, Commissioner, it's a little bit of both, but typically they do not have their own utility. But I think that's a position of power for you because you have more control and the abilities to do even more than a local government that does not have such a utility.
Okay, with that being said, I want one more question. The $100,000 per year for 3 years, so the city has to commit that. Is that correct?
Yes, and again, this is these are options that are available. I'm not here pushing one program or the other, but if you wanted a full-time staff person committed with a satellite office, that would be the amount of money we would need to pay the salary, compensation. We would need office marketing. We would also have to have some fintech investment just so that we're plugged in and ready to go. But yes, that $300,000 investment, we would try and leverage a minimum of 8-to-1 and potentially 10-to-1, meaning we would try and turn that $300,000 seed grant, which is growing our organizational capacity, with $3 million of low-cost loan capital that we would raise from global crowdfunding, faith-based organizations, impact investors, bank CRA, and so forth. And we would bring that $3 million into the local jurisdiction. So if I can refer back again to St. Pete, in the first 3 years, we did, I believe, 2.5 million in projects or so in the first 3 years. And then, so our leveraging ratio in that first 3 years was about 8-to-1. And then in year 4, the grant expires, we're continuing to operate, and that leveraging ratio just continues to grow.
Okay, my next question, you do put a lien against the property, correct?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That is the PACE program. We are not a PACE provider. We are a community.
How do you protect your investment to make sure you get paid back?
We do not. It's an unsecured personal loan.
Okay.
Is it just for solar?
No, it's for.
Doug, could you comment?
Hello?
Yeah, this is Christopher.
Commissioner Diaz has had his light on for a few minutes.
Sorry.
No problem. Certain things stand out to me, like the use of local contractors, prioritizing minority businesses, things like that, as definitely big pluses. I had a very similar question to Commissioner Malega, so you kind of already answered it in terms of this is a loan to those customers. Again, like, you know, I would be curious on how other towns protect that because, you know, if you're going to prioritize helping people on affordable housing and whatnot, I think you want to minimize the risk on each of those customers as much as possible, especially in our community, because we want them to have solar, absolutely. But if I'm not mistaken, I mean, you've given us these three options, but these aren't like set in stone. There's some, you know, adjustments can be made, customizations, so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. And if I could just clarify really quickly, PACE, or Property Assessed Clean Energy, is the most prevalent clean energy financing program in the country. It's also been the one fraught with the most problems because it is a secured lending product that is attached to your property. And the other problem is in Florida, in order to get a PACE loan, it's not actually considered a loan. It's considered a voluntary assessment you pay as a part of your taxes. So it therefore does not have to go through the same underwriting scrutiny that a loan would. Someone does not even have to prove their ability to pay. So you can get 20% of the value of your property through a PACE loan, even if you can't afford it. And then the next year when your tax bill comes due, if you default on your taxes, you could potentially lose your home. So we are not pushing secured PACE programs under this scenario. We're certified by U.S. Treasury as a community development financial institution, a CDFI. And the National CDFI program was set up to try and help provide low-cost capital to underserved communities. And what we're doing is basically providing unsecured microloans, and we do a deep dive on the individual's ability to pay, and we approve loans based on their ability to pay, not on credit scores. But we do not put a lien on the property, and the property is not in jeopardy. If the loans go bad, that's on us. And just as a technicality, I don't mean this in a crass way, but we don't actually need your permission to lend in your community. We already are certified by U.S. Treasury as a CDFI, and we are not, like a PACE loan would require you to actually collect the loan for them as a part of the taxes. We don't need you to do that. So we don't need you to authorize us to lend, and we don't need you to collect on our loans. But what we try and do is work closely with like-minded local governments who see us as an implementation tool, who can literally bring in millions of dollars of outside resource and expertise. And we're one of the few green banks in America that has a laser focus on low and moderate income communities. So almost 75% of all of our lending to date has been in LMI areas. So we're one of the few green banks that's focused on underserved communities.
What kind of interest rates do the people pay?
Well, interest rates range between 5 and maybe 9%. Most of our loans are coming in around 6-7%. And again, I would emphasize these are unsecured personal loans. So if you were to go, I have decent credit. I went and got an unsecured loan. It would come in about 18%. And most clients we're helping would use a credit card that's coming in at 22 to 25%.
And
so we're generally
you charge simple interest.
Fixed rate, correct. And we're generally saving, we're not only providing them with access to funding they may not have otherwise gotten, but we're typically saving them 10 to 20% on their interest rates. And one last note, if I could, we also report to the credit bureau so that when they pay their loans off, they're actually building their credit with us.
And Doug, could you comment on two things? One is your default rate over the time that you've been operating. Not your default, but I guess the clients. And the other is, what do you loan for? I know that the name is the Solar Energy Loan Fund, but what kind of things are homeowners doing that you're loaning in the low and middle income?
Commissioner, first to the default rate. Our default rate has been below 2% over the last 3 years or more. I believe it's currently at about 1.7%. So even though we're lending into what is perceived as a riskier environment, we're actually outperforming banks because we're not pushing loans on people. We're trying to help them. So we determine their disposable income, and then we build a loan around their ability to pay. But if they take on a loan in default, that doesn't help them. It doesn't help us. And it would hurt our ability to repay our investors, which includes 13 faith-based organizations from all across North America. We have never defaulted on a single one of our 23 investors to date. And the second question, Commissioner, was about the types of improvements. Because we focus on underserved communities, oftentimes the housing stock is older and needs more fundamental upgrades before it's even ready for solar. So solar is the last step, not the first step. We're helping them with energy conservation, weatherization, insulation. We're helping them with high efficiency air conditioners. We do a lot of resilience. We do impact windows, doors, hurricane shutters. We've added new programs for getting people off septic tanks. We have a new sewer loan so that people can hook up to central sewer. We have new loans specifically for veterans, disabled people, female heads of household. We have a variety of different lending programs. We just developed a new one specifically to help landlords so that we can also assist rental properties. So we have quite a few different lending programs that we can bring in to assist you depending on your highest priorities.
We're not looking for action tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But
My question was, we're not looking for action tonight, but
we're looking for a consensus. We want to have a good discussion on the matter, and certainly having that. The staff is looking for a consensus on direction on whether we do the first option, option 1, option 2, or option 3. Option 1 to me, frankly, is a no-brainer. We should go ahead.
I think, that's at this point, I don't know how much money we have to invest.
Right. We are in the throes of our budget discussion, so we can discuss during the budget. This would be a supplemental to the budget. But we wanted to get that on the table now as we're starting the budget discussion, so we can all think about that and you can give us direction.
It sounds like a really worthwhile program. I mean, I'm thinking right now, people that need roofs and air conditioners and that sort of thing. So I mean, it sounds like for our residents, it would be a helpful thing for them to have access to.
Yeah, absolutely, especially knowing that fuel prices, natural gas prices are going up, the cost of cooling their homes is going to be going up, and this is something that we should get into their hands as soon as possible.
Commissioner Malega.
I just have one more question. Let's just say we did go with a combination of option 2 and 3. Would the funding be split between electric utility and water utilities since it's multiple levels of funding? Would it come out of general fund? Where would the money come from?
That is a part of the consensus that we'd like this to be. Is this really an electric utility item? I think first you decide, is this something that the community should do? And then we find somewhere in the city to say, we really want to point the finger and say, take it out of there.
Yeah.
Or we could do ratios or we could have each department contribute a certain percentage. I guess that's what we'd have to work through, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you go to a third option, even the second option, we're talking essentially about adding a full-time staff member to the city, which we are struggling now to get people that we need, positions filled that we need to fill.
I think they provide the person.
No, we provide the money.
Yeah, but
Well, the money, who cares, right?
Right, and we have to add it.
And
We have
office
to have somebody
space.
internally to coordinate the activities.
Yeah, and I see your light is on, Commissioner Diaz. I think that it's a great program. I think that we should start with the first option because we don't have any money, see how it goes and take it from there.
I think the first option is one we should absolutely do.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we would bear the cost of the bill stoppers and getting promotional material out to the customers.
We can have this in the paper. We could do advertising all over.
We should be getting this to all of our customers in their bills. It should be
TV.
a reminder on the bill plus a separate flyer.
Yeah.
But that's initial. And I think you do have to have a good discussion and you want to go further. And I would encourage you to do that at the time of the budget discussion.
Yeah.
And say how much, because there are a number of things that are in the supplemental request.
Because I know we have positions already unfunded that we have to fill before we can do something like this. But it sounds like, I'm thinking we can have people that could use it. Commissioner Diaz?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I feel like it's a very worthy investment, and literally, we're just talking about commercial storage and all these energy issues, and this is a big part of it is helping people, get rooftop solar, improve their homes, getting better installation. The top complaint or one of the biggest things I'd always hear from our community is they're trying to, improve their windows, improve their roofs, insulation, and this really does seem like a no-brainer. I would love to see a supplemental that starts with the second option and we're not Petersburg, we don't have Gulf oil spill money, but if we can maybe come up with a plan to work our way up. I see this, I look at the list of the communities they've partnered with already, and I feel like, we would stand out as a community that really is kind of niched for this kind of.
It sounds great. I don't want to do anything with money though until we fund the positions we already have identified as we need. That's how I feel about that. This is icing on the cake, and I think we should do it. But I think we have staff members that we need right now to fund before we can do something else. That's my opinion. I love the idea. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. And
Would you guys be willing to host what if we did like a workshop for the residents and the landlords? Would they be able to come out and do a workshop or a presentation? So I'm thinking about all the landlords and the ADA,
because this,
I really like that. That's what it says, yeah.
Yeah, this is available to landlords to improve their rental properties as well, which is something.
Well, that would suggest that they, for example, like I'm assuming, Doug, you could set up a booth at our state of the city address, right? We're gonna have various departments will have booths, want to set up a tabletop and have materials available to hand to customers.
June 16th.
So, I'm sure you probably already have some collateral material that you can hand out, right? And we'll have it up on the website by then. But we could certainly, there'll be members of the public that will come to that address at the casino.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it's, I think, 50 to 75 people or so that'll be there. Press will be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an opportunity. That's the first one that's coming up. And then we can have collateral material going out in customers' bills midsummer.
Where's your office, Doug?
We have multiple offices. Our headquarters is in Fort Pierce, where we've been for 11 years. And then we've set up new offices in St. Pete, Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, and soon Miami.
Okay, so you're the one closest to us then, Fort Pierce. Okay.
Yeah, our Treasure Coast Regional Loan Officer would take this under his wing. That was why I was kind of proposing like the option 2, because I felt like that would be the perfect place for your city would be within, this region. And he's been working with us for more than 5 years and has already completed about $5 million of projects himself. But just a real quick side note, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to emphasize the need to connect with your contractors. Our number one contractor is a mom and pop air conditioning company from Fort Pierce who has done $1.2 million of projects with us. Our second biggest contractor is a mom and pop roofing company that's done $800,000 of projects with us. So if we can build your local contractor base, get them on board for free, they can use our financing to grow their business and help local people at the same time.
It's great. There's nothing bad about this proposal. It's a wonderful proposal. I can see a lot of our people using it.
Could I put in a comment? I've got my hand up.
Sure.
I think I hear the mayor with the concern about funding. I think we should keep very much in mind the nature of our community and the need and the interest that Commissioner Malega has expressed that I support too, of building generational wealth. And one of the ways to do that is to build the value of your home and reduce your costs of operating it. So all of the improvements on the home, whether they're hurricane or insulation for reducing, for energy conservation, reducing fuel costs, et cetera. I see that as something that the city, this is what we should be doing. So an investment of 60,000 with a potentially 8 or 10 to 1 return on it, and that builds local businesses seems to me like a very high priority for us as a commission to support our community and, putting a quite small amount of either tax or utility money back into the community with a very large return on it and a long-term return. So I would very much support either option 2 or option 3 to really help our community in concrete ways.
What stops our community from taking advantage of this if we use option 1? It's available, it's there, we just have to.
Nothing stops our community from doing it, but I think what we're hearing from Mr. Coward is experience in other communities, whether counties or cities, is that if you want to grow this, you need to put some seed investment in to help build that base of contractors, help actively let homeowners know that the program is there. As we've talked about often, one of the challenges we as a city have is simply getting information out to people. And if your target audience is the low and middle income, I think that difficulty of getting that information out is even higher. So what we would be getting for our investment, I think I'm guessing, is more effective outreach, both to the build the contractor community and to build the clients in the community that improve their homes with it.
And what I'm saying is I don't have any inherent philosophical objection to that. Practically speaking, with the beginning of our budget season, we have very needed positions that we need to fill. And I'm just suggesting that we do take a look at the overall before we commit essentially another paid position in our city. And in the meantime, it's not like we aren't going to start in the meantime. We can get started in the meantime. And if during the budget process, we find some money to do it and we can do it, then I would say, go ahead. I think it's no philosophical difference, just practically speaking, let's get our ducks in a row. We can start the project, we can get out the mailers and I mean, I'm reading the difference between the first and second. It's you know, the local contractor base will be developed as we get started. Nothing's not going to happen. It just means it's a little harder to get out. But all I'm saying is I think it's a great program. I just want it to be integrated into our budget process so that we know what we're doing. Commissioner Leggett? So that's, I mean, I think everyone's in, I think, 5, absolute consensus to go forward with it. It's just, are we going to commit money? And I'm just saying, hold off with committing money until we know where our money's coming from. I think that's fiscally responsible.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why if we wait to see, a supplemental and what can be presented as a plan, I mean.
Let's start with the first option and go from there.
Right, well, yeah, we could start with the first option now, and then as we see the supplemental and we can see, because, as someone who has started and runs multiple nonprofits, I can see the value in investing the pursuit of these grants and helping, getting these loans going, because
right.
Doug obviously has a reputation. He's really good and has a reputation of being successful at these projects.
No question. I mean, there's no argument.
I don't think we're saying we have to make a decision now. I don't think that's what Commissioner McVoy is saying. It's saying as we go through the budget process and we see the supplemental, that would be, we'll make a decision then.
I'd like to hear from Commissioner Stokes too in regards to this before we make any decisions, but no, I mean, start with the option A and maybe we can modify and mold into options, but I love this program.
Yeah.
Great program.
I can already think of your contractors. I'm sure we all can.
Citizens.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like landlord, citizen.
Yeah.
So with your consent, we'll move option A right away.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk more about option 2 or 3.
Or combination.
Or some combination of that as a part of the supplemental budget request.
Right,
Yeah.
then we can make decisions.
And also I'd suggest that if Doug's team is available, they could come to the State of the City address, have a tabletop there. Various departments will have tabletops. I believe the State of the City, that will reconfirm that, but we could have self there. With their materials to hand out to people if they were there so far.
Is there a 4th of July program? I mean, we have the raft race, we have the fireworks, but is there like a event during the day there with tables and vendors and stuff? I don't really know.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sure.
Party in the park, I think.
All right. So thank you very much. This is a great program.
Hang on, I do have one more question, Doug.
Sure.
Do you need to have a valid social security number to apply for this?
No.
Thank you.
And I do want to respond just really quickly and say thank you for having me. As it relates to different events in the city, if you're going to pursue option A, we will not have the ability to spend any time or money in the city. I cannot send staff and pay for brochures and this type of thing if I don't have resources. So we're more than happy to have you share information, but please understand, if we don't have seed money, I cannot put boots on the ground, though I completely understand your position, Mayor. And it actually is good because we're opening up Miami right now. And so if we start with option A and grow into potentially a second option, that would actually make more sense for our organization as well. So I completely understand that commitment. So thank you again for having us tonight, and just let me know if I can be of any further assistance answering any questions you may have.
Thank you for doing this. I mean, this for a lot of people is going to be a godsend. We love your program. We're just
Thank
going to
you.
find the money to fund it.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll cover the cost of printing and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I think that we can, Doug, if you get us the information, the brochures, maybe the printer that you use, we'll try to coordinate that to get into a bill stuffer.
Yes.
We will make reference to it in our bills. We can have message sections on our bills.
put on Facebook. I mean, we've got plenty.
Right, we have a Facebook, right?
Do you have it
Certainly
in,
a website.
do you have it in multi-languages?
We do. We just developed Spanish language, and I just hired a Haitian American who speaks Creole. So we're going to be developing that as well.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
All right. Excellent. Lovely.
Thank you all.
Moving right along, we are now on number F. It is the First Amendment to the Rep Serve Professional Services Agreement for Consulting Services. And this is an electric,
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Liberty.
For the record, that Liberty Electric Utility Director. RepServe is a local company that we use. Really, it's one individual that we use to help us with construction support. This individual was at one time actually a member of our Electric Utility Advisory Board, had been nominated by a former commissioner. At the time, he was a commissioner. And I got to know him on the board. And his background is one of having owned a construction company that built substations much larger than the one you toured the other day, but more like what you'll see now. He built substations like that in the Northeast for a very large utility. Not one that I work for, but for a different utility. Realizing the talent that he had, the skill sets that we had, we asked him to join us as a consultant. So he stepped down from his position on the advisory board and joined us as a consultant. So the work that he did to us, or did with us so far, he helped us write our construction spec, our material spec, our procurement spec for a project of this type. And he also then monitors the projects as they're underway. He's boots on the ground on the site, holding the contractors accountable to the spec. He also helped us write the bid specifications, review the bids, and he of course manages all of the change orders and watches those very closely. And really holds the contractors accountable. So he provides a great service. What we're asking for here is to take his initial contract, which was about $50,000, and extend it up another $200,000. We like this services a lot.
For 1 year?
No.
I was going to say, that's a good job.
No, it's not $200,000 a year. He spends only a few hours a week with us at a very competitive rate. But it basically rebuilds the contract for $200,000, and we run out and we come out and ask again. That's not $200,000.
How long do you expect that $200,000 to
I
last?
would say the first contract went probably a couple of years, but now we're into heavy construction. But he only spends less than 20 hours a week. It's not a full-time thing.
And it's an hourly rate.
It's an hourly rate, very competitive hourly rate that we can discuss it one-on-one.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Lega?
So I hear what you just said, Mr. Liberty, but with all due respect, it says on February 1st, 2021, we entered into a contract of $50,000. And that was 1 year and 3 months ago. So have we spent through that $50,000 that we approved back on February 1st?
No, that may be a typo. I don't, is Valentina on the phone this night, or is Paul on the phone? Paul Nicholas from my team.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Did you explain the 2021 date?
Yeah, so this contract was executed, the initial one, on the date that was just previously mentioned. It wasn't just one project that Mark is overseeing. So Mark has also assisted during the plan review and the specifications reviews for both the 138 Canal switch yard the 7th Ave North Substation, as well as the Canal 8 Bay Distribution Substation, and then also oversaw the development of the main yard control house package and the construction of the main yard control house foundation. So he's actually, that initial $50,000 was basically split between 4 different projects that he's managed almost over the past year. And so as we move into this next round of projects, obviously the reviews that are done during the engineering phase is less time consuming than that when the projects actually go into construction. As we move into this next phase of these projects, which is going to involve the construction of the 138 kV switch yard, the construction of the Canal 8 Bay distribution substation. We're also doing the main yard control house and the main yard insulator projects, which are going to start in October. Mark is going to be very busy. And there are a couple other projects on there as well, which he'll be overseeing the development of the design package for the 6th Avenue South substation, which is currently in production, and the new 12th Avenue South substation once that gets fully funded. So he's going to be a busy guy. I would imagine this $200K to take us through. I would imagine the next 2 years. But likely I would imagine him to be nearly or close to, I'd say, a minimum 30 hours a week with the city overseeing the construction of these projects. They're going to be very, very time consuming once we get into construction, managing these contractors and all the field activities.
Okay, with all due respect, when we approved the contracts for these programs, the engineering, the design, and the outlay were included with those prices. So now we're paying a third person to review these plans? I need to know, is he there to protect our interest? Is he?
Absolutely. He is what you.
Ed wants to chime in.
Hold
Oh,
on.
sorry about that.
He's construction management, not engineering and design. So he comes from the perspective of saying, hey, I bid on projects like this and I've constructed them. This is what should be in your engineering package. This is what should be in your construction specification. And this is what should be in the contract with the builder.
So we have nobody in-house who does that?
Absolutely not. We don't have anybody. We haven't built a substation since 1970. So
Come on, Ed, you do everything.
that person retired. And when I've done these projects, I hired people like Repsol. This is somebody who actually knows the ins and outs. So he saved us an awful lot of money. And he's kept the contractors on their toes in terms of delivering exactly what we wanted and holding them accountable.
I just want to be mindful that, the first answer was it took us a couple of years to spend the 50,000, and now it's 1 year and a couple of months. So
Well,
I'm
we're
hoping
into
that,
heavy construction now. In the first 2 years, they were usually doing a lot of documents because we
Okay.
haven't put a shovel in the ground yet.
okay.
But once
We
the
know-
contract is mobilizing, you're pouring concrete, digging things out.
So is he hourly rate
Yes, he is.
or is he per project?
No, it's an hourly rate
So he's actually physically there when they're doing the work to make sure they do it correctly.
So
Absolutely.
he's on site.
on site.
Okay.
His boots on the ground on site.
Thank you for the clarification.
And he's not doing design engineering, but he's, we are in the design. We may be leaving money on the table because of the way that we designed it.
Okay, thank you.
And making sure that the construction spec and the material spec are tight. So that gives the contractor less wiggle room for change order. That doesn't mean that there won't be any change order.
I hear you.
And there's an awful lot of work that has to be done, what we call commissioning, which is actually then testing the system and bringing it out, but making sure that on day one, when the switch, everything's gonna be okay.
With that, I have a motion to approve.
Well, Mr. McGoy has his hand up.
Oh, I see his little yellow hand now.
I think I heard that I can talk. I would just like to say that as somebody who builds much smaller and much less complicated, but still out in the environment, installations, when we went to the 7th Avenue North Substation, I was very impressed. It was first-rate construction and design and carry out. So I suspect that we're getting our money's worth here.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'll point out that what you all saw there, so thank you for coming out though, and what you saw there was half of what a normal substation will be. So all the other substations will be twice that size, and the 138 yard at Canal will probably be 4 or 5 times that size.
Okay, I heard a motion somewhere.
Yeah, well, one quick question.
Put your light on.
His previous bid in 2021, it had a yearly cap on it. We're not gonna do that this time, right? And does it?
Well, he gets paid an hourly rate and if he
Right.
works more hours, we pay him out of that bucket of money that we create. And if we get, as we get closer to the end, and if we want to continue with services, then we would ask you to refill the bucket.
Right, okay, yeah, because I'm just asking because his last bid, he capped himself at 45,000 a year. And I was just wondering if, we probably don't want to do that this time.
Correct. When he first started with us, he wasn't sure he wanted to commit that much
Okay.
time to us.
Okay,
But as he's gotten further into it, we've been asking for more of his time. He has a number of other things that he does in his life.
Well, that was my question. I mean, does he have enough time to do what we need him to do, or does he have other contracts that will keep him distracted?
He has enough time. He's committed to do this, and our staff is learning from him. So he's also been a good mentor to our engineers who have not built substations like this before. And this is a much cheaper way to do it than hiring a design engineer. So normally you might hire your design engineer to provide construction oversight.
Right.
Our design engineers do provide some construction oversight, but it's only in terms of answering questions with regards to the design package. But they're not here to actually make sure that the concrete got poured correctly, that was clean, that it was cured properly, that the rebar was tied down the way it's supposed to, that the connections were the way it's supposed to, that they're pulling a cable with the specifications. It's not just you use the right cable. No, did you pull it correctly? Did you install it correctly? Did you torque it correctly? Things like that.
there's only so many substations you can build in 1 year. If you're.
Right.
And Mr. Liberty, my understanding that first contract was under a different scope. So this is much more elaborate scope of services in this phase.
Correct. So he helped create the construction spec and the bid documents, which we're now using over and over again. Now we're actually in the field work. Yeah, that's work boots in the stones and the dirt and the sand. We're watching what's going on.
Nice to have stuff getting done. I had a motion.
Yes.
Did I have a
Commissioner
second?
Maliga made a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't believe I had a second though, Madam Mayor.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor.
Pick your commissioner. Okay, moving right along. We are now on G.
H. Nope, she's right, G.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I get confused. G, task order number 8, sounds like a song. Task order number 8 with Reddy's International LC to complete geotechnical services for the Intracoastal Waterway Distribution Crossing.
Yes, Madam Mayor. This item is related to the
right.
new crossing to the beach,
Right.
the new conductors. We need to do soil bores and soil analysis. We don't understand what we're boring through. And we also need to have a lot of design information for the electrical design.
Okay.
So this is the reduce.
Do I have a motion? Oh, I have a question.
Just thought-
Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah. I guess more of a statement. I spend a lot of time there, and so you're gonna be digging through a lot of muck, but
So much muck.
so much muck.
So much muck.
Maybe on nitpicking, can we start calling it the Lake Worth Lagoon instead of Intracoastal Waterway? Intracoastal Waterway is just one facet of it, and it's part of something I've been working on for many years, is trying to bring back meaning to that water body that is so special to our town. And it's more than just the ICW, it's a historic water body.
That's great. Let me just ask you just for my own, so when we say that, if we say Lake Worth Lagoon, geographically, what does that mean? Like our border?
Geographically, Lake Worth Lagoon is where PGA crosses over the Intracoastal, like next to that Publix.
So it's that whole thing,
Right?
not just our town.
And it goes down to Ocean down in Boynton. You see it kind of taper off, and then there's a canal.
Mhm.
So like the canal and the channel itself is the Intracoastal Waterway, but in between is Lake Worth Lagoon. Used to be Lake Worth. So many changes, very historic, very prominent, and it's something, as a town and all the towns along the lagoon should kind of be proud of it. And we're taking.
Could it be the Lake Worth Beach Lagoon?
Well, I mean, the lagoon, and the lagoon, 80% of it is bulkheaded, and natural beach inside the lagoon is becoming pretty rare, and much of that is in Lake Worth because we protect it.
From Mr. Steinhardt.
I just want to clarify something. Wouldn't want people thinking at home that we're going to be trenching across the lagoon.
Right.
Right.
This is going to be a directional bore or drill deep down under the lagoon.
Yeah.
Probably, like I say, probably 15 to 30 feet in some places or more under the bottom of the lagoon and back up on the other side. We're not going to be destroying the bottom as we go across.
Yeah, and I'm personally interested in this kind of data because, we like to know where it's not, I mean, it's a thick layer of muck, but it's not even all the way across the lagoon. There's deeper parts, there's bubbles here and there and whatnot. And it's always good to know where those pockets are, just as
So
a.
I understand correctly, we'll be doing these soil bores as much as 50 to 100 feet below the bottom. So,
Oh, wow. Amazing.
so if you want us to drop some of these tubes off at your home or your office, let us know, and we'll give you the soils, But they'll be characterized in the data's public and
Yeah.
we'll be doing.
Yeah,
It's a good historical piece of history of what's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, to be able to see probably evidence of when it was a freshwater lake to what it is now, and a lot of changes, really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So, and definitely move to.
So if there's any dinosaur fossils, do we get to keep those?
I had a whole riparian survey done of that whole area 20, I may still have it.
Yeah,
But we had a very famous guy go out and do it, count the 6 little sea grapes that were things that were there. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll
We
move.
did that already. No, we didn't.
Oh.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to H. Second amendment to agreement with KVA Incorporated for the Canal 138 KV switchyard prefabricated control house.
Yes, Madam Mayor, similar to what you saw at 7th Avenue, we had that control house, which was only for a small half of a 26 kV substation or switching station. The Canal substation is going to be a very elaborate 138 kV station with 2 very large station transformers, a 4-breaker ring, and a lot of equipment. That control house is substantially larger. So this contract is with the company that wanted to bid to build the control houses. This allows us to go ahead and build that new control house with them.
So does that include, because when you went in, there was air conditioned, there were lots of dials and wires and things that looked very electrical. Does that include it's not just the box, it's setting all that up in this inside as well?
I'll ask Nicholas to give us a little bit, but certainly includes all of the air conditioning and climate control of the batteries.
Because that's a lot of money for a
It
small
is.
box, and
Right.
it's not got the other
Well, this will be quite larger. This will be substantially larger, but it's a lot of money for
box.
something that's meant to stay there in Category 5 storms. But
Right.
Paul, why don't you walk us through what's going to be included inside the box? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Paul.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right.
No, we can't.
Tell me it's cutting in and out. I'll try and get a little closer here. The control house includes, it's not just the structure itself, it does include all of the ancillary components, all of the control panels, the relays that you guys, similar to what you saw inside 7th Avenue North. So it includes all of the ancillary components, the relays, the panels, the backup battery systems, AC units, automatic transfer switches. So it's a complete control house. When we pick it up off the flatbed, it gets set down on the foundation and they finish up the final wiring to that control house. But it already comes pre-wired and assembled from the manufacturer.
And that's obviously custom to us, what we need.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Maliga?
My only concern with this is, number 2, amount not to exceed. It shows that the contract is $766,913 with a contingent play money, whatever, if you will, of $76,000. I haven't seen this on any other contract, so I was just questioning why do we need to do this? Is that because of the cost of material? Is this?
Yes,
Built-in cushion in case you go over?
there's a couple factors involved here. We're still dealing with, some of the commodity price.
Cannot hear you.
Can't hear you.
Paul, you're dropping out. Your microphone's not working well.
My apologies. It's probably the internet here.
It's not helping.
A lot of that has to do with the commodity price fluctuations. They did give us a fixed price. However, in the event, let's say a panel, for some reason, additional panel is needed, or some ancillary component is needed. This kind of mitigates having to come back to the commission for approval of a small amount item. We kept that number at 10%, which is typically standard in this type of a contract. So that is how that number is in there. So it gives us a little flexibility to continue to keep the product moving on track.
So it could come in under, and then we could save that 76,000 and change.
Yeah, it should come in at the stipulated price of the bid. That little bit of extra is in there in the event that there's a change that's needed through the course of construction as that building makes its way through the production line.
Thank you for clarification.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I haven't been asking you for a while, but have there been any public comments on anything that we've done tonight?
No, and if there were, I would have popped in.
I thought you would, but I just.
Yeah, there's no public comment on any item whatsoever at all.
Thank you.
Is our computer working? That's right.
And nothing's coming from the.
Believe me, yes, it is definitely working.
That's weird.
No questions?
It's
Thank
not
you.
really.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Aye.
very much. Aye. Finally. Number I, a purchase order with Stewart C. Irby Company for GE current limiting reactors.
Yes, Madam Mayor, exactly.
Mr. Liberty.
We need a whole bunch of these.
Oh, get it.
One of the things that you saw, thank you. One of the things that you saw at the new 7th Avenue switching station were these current limiting reactors. These are non-nuclear reactors. These allow us to control what we call a fault current, which is that sudden inrush of current that you get when you have a phase to phase or phase to ground fault, similar to what you might have at home with a circuit breaker, right? Our fault currents are very, very high because of the voltage that we operate at, but also the short spans of wiring that we have in our system. These fault currents, we'd like to limit them well below 6,300 amps because that will allow us to also deploy other technology in the field, which are called trip savers, so that we can not blow fuses and allow circuits to reset themselves one or two times. So fault currents is also what causes a lot of the damage on the system. So when we get fuses that blow inexplicably, hotspots, wire that fails, poles that go on fire, it's because of the high fault current that we've had and the temperature is done over time. So adding new devices will help limit those fault currents. And what we want to do is we want to standardize on one type of device. So we basically have a fleet of those and we minimize the spare parts that we have to carry and also the training and the knowledge of safety and how to work with these devices. So that's why we've chosen the GE device. Irby is the local distributor, if you will, for the device. They don't manufacture, but they distribute for GE.
Thank you, Commissioner Malika.
Okay, I just have one quick question. On the very last page where the little GE logo is at the corner, which shows the quote, there's a little box where it says firm. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth box over on the bottom. There's a double asterisk that says does not include 25% handling. I'm gonna guess it's addendum. It says ADDER period invoice at the time of shipment. So this contract is going to come in 25% higher for handling.
No, it's just on the additional shipping charge. It's not on the 25% on the entire bill.
So they're marking up shipping. Isn't that illegal? Aren't you supposed to only charge what it costs for a shipping?
They don't know what the cost for shipping is going to be at this time yet, so that's why they have that 25%.
Because I was like 25% of this bill for shipping. I'm like, where's it coming from? I literally, I've done the math 3 times. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Shane.
I'm like, no, it's like Mars with that kind of price range. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. I was like,
Great,
what
thank you
does
very
that mean? Thank you very much for that. Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
by Commissioner Diaz, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I've used up all my lifelines, so I hope you don't have any more questions.
I think we're at crap.
Is that control room to be able to approve?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
And then I have one quick question for you after the meeting, not just a silly thing. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.